Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Part 5 Vedas, Veda Shakhas, branches of Veda. Vedas are Anantam, that is endless. Vedantam means the end of Vedas. Shruti Siras or Veda Mudi also means the end of Vedas. What is this end of Vedas, of endless Vedas? In the matter of principles of Vedas, as the essence of what they have to say is the end of all ends, that is, the realization that the life principle, Atma, is the same one reality in all. That is the end point of all Vedas. Whosoever is born as a Brahmin is to learn, chant, and practice whichever branch of the Vedas, first the Samhitai, then Brahmanam, then Aranyakam, and finally the Vedantam, that is the Upanishad. The end point of all that is once again self realization of Atma. Then, why did these countless Vedas divide into so many branches? Jiva has to cleanse himself and has to learn all that he has to get the Atma Sat Chatkaram. That is, see or cognize oneself as the power being and not only the gross being. Through the initial period of adhyayana, of learning, chanting and practicing the mantras, through conduct of anushtanas, including yagnas, then the tattva artha vicharana of analysis, then trying to understand the parama artha tattva, then after due conviction of understanding and cognition has taken roots, mull over it through meditation and nididhyasana. When these three steps of initial learning and practice, followed by karma anushtana, leads you to deep cogitation, you have received what you need. It is not necessary to learn all the parts of all the Vedas. Neither is it required, nor is it possible. I have already narrated the story of Bharadwaja Rishi, who devoted 3 successive lives for the learning of the Vedas. All his learning could amount to 3 fistfuls compared to mountains of Vedas yet to be touched, so that much as a dosage as required to cleanse, build up his absorption capabilities, and enable the individual towards self realization is what has been apportioned in each branch of the Vedas, that is known as the Shakha. Each Shakha of the Veda contains what is required by a Brahmin from the time of his birth till his death, the karma anushtana as required to be done by his parents initially, by himself secondly, and by his offspring subsequently. To learn one of these shakha or branches by way of adhyayanam, that is, learn all its samhita mantras by heart, keeping those mantras in view, to conduct the various karma anushtanas, including yagnas, then to bridge the gap between the outer activities and the inner heart and mind through the discussions in the Aranyakam, then to mull over, ruminate, meditate the deep truths of the Upanishads, whatever is needed to guide you through all this without faltering is what has been included in each shaka of the Vedas. To the matured person, one word is enough. If the individual over many lifetimes has evolved enough, maybe in this life all he or she may need may only be a nudge. But others may need a whole lifetime or even a few more. Generally, for a jiva to be purified to perfection, many actions, upasana, puja, japa, tapasya, and dhyana may be needed. As much as a normal human requires is what is given in each shakha, the required dosage of mantras, directions for karmas, and philosophical discussions. The matter of non Brahmins. What you have said earlier is about how a Brahmin has to come up in life and attain to self-realization. How about those who are not Brahmins? Do they not have to be cleansed and polished to perfection? After all, they do not have these karma anushtanam and Veda adhyayanam. What are they supposed to do? The answer lies in work is worship. For each, his work itself provides the chitta shuddhi. The work should be done in that attitude, whether it is carpentry or masonry, casual labor or specialized, solidaring or whatever, do your job with the clarity that it is in offering to your God. Then you are done. This fact has been very clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, that 46. Swakarmana tamabhyacharya siddhim vindati manavaha, meaning that man attains to perfection by worshipping the Lord by performing his own duty. That brings me to the question as to what exactly is the profession of a Brahmin. Like others have soldiering, policing, trading, service, nursing, and so on, what exactly is the job of this Brahmin for this society? Everybody does some business in their worldly involvement. In all this, what is the most important need or requirement on which the success of every type of life is dependent? Can we name it as the grace of God? To obtain that commodity, the grace of God for the society as a whole is the job of the Brahmin. As said earlier, all the Devatas are like God's bureaucracy, and it is their cooperation and blessing that is sought by the Brahmin on behalf of all life forms. His Adhyayanam, learning of the Vedas, practice of all Anushtana of karmas and yagnas are all directed towards obtaining and sustaining the welfare of all people and life forms. Since his job is concerned with powers much above the normal run of these worldly concerns and events, he has to maintain a very high level of personal purity and cleanliness, physically, mentally, and morally. Only then he will be enabled to earn the powers of the mantra for the sake of all. Once we understand this, we will not begrudge his having to keep himself a little apart physically. Other than this esoteric duty of his, the Brahmin has another important role to play in the worldly life, that is, to study and master or at least one more profession, not for practicing, but to be a master and teach. That is how there have been acharyas in every profession from among the Brahmins. In other words, teaching is his profession. They are the gurus. Vishwakarma in carpentry, Dronacharya in archery, Dhanvantri in medicine, and Chanakya in Arthashastra, to name a few, were such Brahmins who excelled in a profession in addition to Veda Adhyayanam and Adhyapakam. They are required to study the ins and outs of whichever profession they choose to learn and master so as to be able to teach. To learn all the nuances and delicate subtle points of the profession and become an expert, but remain short of practicing that profession so that he can teach that to the professional. More than protecting others, the nation and society, such as soldiering and policing, more than trading and commercial activities, more than any other work requiring physical labor, the Brahmin's work, since it protects the profession, minds, hearts, and culture of the people of that society, his work becomes extremely responsible. Unless that job is done by a person of high maturity and equipoise, his work is likely to be futile. Unless he himself is very clean of heart and mind, he cannot lift others to excellence. Simultaneously, he runs a greater risk than others. That risk is the fact that, since his inputs to the system is more cerebral, based on brain, intellect, and intuition, he has a big handicap. His ability to influence the supernatural and his capacity to teach the professional his profession can lead to boosting of his ego beyond reasonable limits. That can easily be the cause for his downfall. So he has to guard against pride. So as to keep him under reins, he is required to go through the ringer of 40 different samskaras. For the mantras to be effective, he has to abide with very difficult restrictions on his mental and physical behavior and attitude. We do see some people still practicing mantra siddhi against snake bites and scorpion bites unless they maintain a very strict discipline in terms of diet control and various do's and don'ts on all sorts of indulgences and gratifications that, with the slightest deviation from the norm, they find that the mantra is not effective. They have many do's and don'ts. Some timings of the day and some days are taboo for many activities. Dhupam has to be shown at a particular time. At a different time, a life sacrifice is to be given. These days, the life sacrifice is given by breaking a coconut. Thus, all the rules and restrictions are meant for the mantras to be effective enough, and for that, Vedavith to get so cleansed of body, heart, and mind. Thus, a total functional set of mantras, its procedural do's and don'ts, and the philosophical analysis of the theme all come within a branch of Veda. Living branches of Vedas. It is true that people in the past were far more capable, had better memory, and powers of concentration, through it may sound like a cliché. Each one was practicing many branches of Vedas. Their range of grasp from their respective gurus was vast and retentivity was very high compared to the student teacher relationship of modern times. Many of them could fathom the depths of or tune onto the cosmic sounds and bring out ever new branch of the Vedas, like bringing out a pearl from the depths of the ocean or making contact with some other source of intelligence. Yes, it is true that Vedas were too vast and no one knew it all. But there were many people of the past who knew more than normally others. In latter days, the divine yogic powers in individual dwindled and hit the rock bottom by the time Kali Yuga started. What is so described in Puranas is what is said by mm, Nachinarukku Iniyar in the comment on Tolkappiyam, when the poet calls the people of Kali Yuga as Chinnal plus Palpini plus Chiraruvinar. Now KTSV adds, I need to first explain the name of the poet. I do not know whether it is a he or a she, but the word Nachinar Kinyar brings before the eye someone vastly knowledgeable, normally reluctant, taciturn, and reserved towards all and sundry, and may be sweetly forthcoming once he is convinced about your sincerity of purpose. Now, coming to the meaning of the quotation, Chinnal, that is equal to is short statured and short lived. Palpini is affected by many diseases. Chirtru Arivinar, small minded in content and quality. We cannot say as to why should it be so. All this is God's play. Having learnt many Vedas and followed it up by systematic conduct of yagas and yagnas, and towards the end of one's life also done much Atma Vichara, such people from generation to generation should be going from strength to strength. Is it not so? Instead, why should it be going from bad to worse? I am not capable of answering this question. What we think of as God or Paramatma should be constant, not subject to change. Could he be playing a varying role? Though Darwin and others claim that the world is all the time evolving towards perfection. When you consider spiritual, intellectual, attitudinal, and behavioral integrity and brilliance, there is a watering down of values. Narrow mindedness seems to be winning over large heartedness. Materialism seems to march far ahead of spiritual advancement. Are we evolving? Are we progressing? Or are we evolving into zombies and automatons? The lowest seem to be the start of Kali Yuga, after which we seem to be touching unfathomed depths of regression. From Kruta Yuga, human longevity and mental and physical capabilities have come down. In that yuga, individual life was as long as the bones lasted. Even when everything else, such as blood, nerves, muscles, etc., decimated, as long as the bones were okay, the person was okay. They had tremendous memory. They were known as Asti Gata Prana. During Treta Yuga, they were known as Mamsagata Prana. That is, even when all the blood supply has dried up, they will continue to live. They were physically very capable and so could do the yagna karmas quite efficiently. The next yuga is Dwapara Yuga, in which people were known as Rudiragata Prana. Rudram in Tamil is Udiram. These people's life was on till drying up of blood. They were good in puja. Now the people of Kali Yuga are known as Annagata Prana. Stop their food and they will die. We have neither Dhyana Shakti nor Karma Anushtana or Puja Shakti. What we are capable is only to chant Krishna Rama Govinda. Yes, this Nama Smarana is powerful enough, but does it give us license to let all the Vedas go by default? Is it not an irreparable loss? With Sri Krishna Bhagwan's physical demise started that process of deterioration. From the moment he dropped his body, a great darkness enveloped the whole universe. His name is also black. He was born in the midnight darkness inside the dungeon of a jail. But he was a powerful, brilliant light of Atma Jnana, awareness, knowledge, and kindness. His disappearance from the world had to mean a loss of all that he stood for. The Kali Purusha's reign started. It is all a play leading towards the end of Kali Yuga, end of another Chatur Yuga, and Pralaya Aka Armageddon. He came as a powerful light. Then, as he was leaving this world, he created a scene as though there will be a fearful total darkness. Then, out of his extreme compassion, he decided not to have total darkness but to give the world a suitable antidote for Kali. Vedas are that antidote. If that is not gobbled up by Kali, the world will survive. The Vedas will be a kindly light that will lead the world out of its darkness. It will not be possible even for Vedas to shine with their earlier effulgence in Kali, but it can be revived and made easy for the human beings of Kali with their limited capabilities. So, he did this great favor to the world through his namesake Veda Vyasar. Vedavyasar's name was also Krishna. He was born in an island that is Dvipam. So he was called Krishna Dvaipayana. He did tapasya under a ilandai, that is bear, Badri's tree. So he was also known as Badrayanar. He knew all the 1180 branches of Vedas that had come through the efforts of many rishis. They were all one huge flow. Since he was an avatar of Vishnu, he had the capacity and power to absorb all that. For our sake, he divided them into 4 Vedas with so many branches, like creating a dam in the flow of a river and channelizing it into a number of channels. That was his greatness of yoga and tapas. Thus came into being Rigveda, branches of prayers, Yajurveda, branches of yagna procedures, Samaveda, branches of music, and Atharvaveda, branches of special mantras and yajnas for protection from evil and dealing with opponents. Samavedam, which was pleasing the Devas with musical invocations, had the maximum of about 1,000 branches. Rig had 21 branches, Yajus had 109, Shukla Yajus 15 and Krishna Yajus 94, and Atharva Veda had 50 branches. This total of 1180 is as gleaned from Vishnu Purana. There is another calculation of Rig 21, Yajus 101, Sama 1000 and Atharva 11, totaling 1133. Since the yet to arrive people of Kali Yuga would be with limited capability and shorter lifespan, Vedavyasa concluded that it is enough for each individual to learn and practice one branch of the Vedas. This thought should be considered as God's will, as it should be, is it not so? So the earlier practice of one man learning more than one Veda became defunct. He gave one Veda each to each of his 4 Sishyas and told them to spread those branches. Rigveda was given to Pillar, Yajus to Vaishampayanar, Sama was given to Jaimini, and Atharva was given to Sumantu to propagate their respective branches. This division of Vedas into 4 main branches and each of them into so many sub branches, Shakas, was done by Krishna Dvaipayanar, and so he got the name of Veda Vyasa. Vyasam means an article, essay, composition. Vyasam is to differentiate and then integrate. That is, Paguttu Arivattu, that they make much about. When he said that learning of one branch was enough, it does not mean that learning more was forbidden. Minimum was at least one branch. It is about 5,000 years since Vyasa did this division of Vedas. This is a fair estimate. The research scholars used to date Mahabharatam and place it at 1500 BC. Subsequently, they agreed that it could be as far back as 3000 BC. Even after Vedavyasa's time, there have been people who made efforts to learn more than one Veda. We have heard of Dvivedi, Trivedi, and Chaturvedi. Dube and Dave are distortion of Dvivedi only. In Bengal, the same names are variously called as Banerjee, Mukherjee, Chatterjee, Mukhopadhyay, and Chattopadhyay. Though the claim is tall, they could have learnt only a branch, each in 2 or 3 or 4 Vedas. Even that is only in namesake these days. Someone among their ancestors might have learnt more than one branch of the Vedas. Among the 63 Nayanamars, Tirugyana Sambandar claims himself to be Nanmarai Gyana Sambandhan. His father left him on the banks of the temple tank when he was a very small baby. When the father went to the bath, the baby cried because of hunger. Mother Parvati herself came to breastfeed the baby. She not only fed the baby but filled his heart and soul with the food of divine awareness and jnana forever. So, it is but natural that he could claim that he knew all the 4 Vedas. In the 5000 odd years since Vedavyasa's grouping of the Vedas into 4, many of the 1180 branches have just disappeared, and we are at the pathetic stage of having been left with only 6 or 7 shakas or branches of the Vedas. When I say shaka, I am looking at the initial Samhita portion. Out of the 21 branches of Rig Veda, only one is alive and known. It is called Sakala Shakha. Since the Aitreya Upanishad occurs in this branch, it is alternately called as Aitreya Shakha too. In Shukla Yajus, out of 15, only 2 are still there. Out of them, the Kanva Shaka is alive in Maharashtra. Madhyantina Shaka is spread in many places in North India. Among the 94 branches of Krishna Yajus, only Taitriyam is noticeable in South India. Out of the 1000 in Samaveda, 997 are lost forever. In South India, the Talavakara, Jaiminya Shaka is prevalent. In Maharashtra, in some places, Ranayaniya Shaka is surviving. In Gujarat and Kerala, Gautama Shaka is present. Out of the 50 branches of Atharva Veda, we were afraid not a single one seemed to have survived. After a lot of research, we located the Saunaka branch in a place known as Sinor in Gujarat. We sent students from Tamil Nadu to learn this branch of Atharva Veda. Now, about the Brahmanas, out of the Brahmanas from the Rig Veda, Aitreya and Kaushidaki, also called Sankyana, Brahmanas are available with their respective Upanishads. Out of the Shukla Yajus Brahmanas, Satapatha Brahmana is the only one currently in practice. This, with some differences, is common between the branches of Madhyantina and Kanva Shakas. This is a book which is big and serves as a specimen of all the Vedas. Ishavasyopanishad comes in the Samhita portion itself of this Veda. Then is its Aranyakam, which is not only an Aranyakam but also completely an Upanishad, the Brihadaranyakam. In Krishna Yajus, the currently useful Brahmanam is Taitriyam. Its Aranyakam is also called Taitriyam, in which are the Taitriya Upanishad and Mahanarayana Upanishad. Many useful shuktas and mantras are found in this Mahanarayana Upanishad. In Krishna Yajus, there is also Maitrayani Aranyakam and the Upanishad of the same name. One of the branches of Krishna Yajus is Kata Shakha, whose Samhitai, Brahmanam and Aranyakam are not available. But the Kathopanishad is the only part of this branch of the Veda available. Similarly, in Krishna Yajus, Svetasvatara Upanishad, which occurs at the end of the Samhitai portion of that branch, is the only part of that branch of the Veda available. In the Samaveda Samhitais, 997 have been lost. From among its Brahmanas, 7 or 8 have survived. Those Brahmanas are Dandya, Arsheya, Devatadhyaya, Samhita, Vamsha, Shadvimsa, Samvidana, Santokya and Jaiminiya. In this Veda, the Talvakara Aranyakam is also known as Talvakara Brahmanam. The last one in this is the Kenopanishad, which also has a name Talvakara Upanishad. Then you have the Santokya Upanishad from the same named Brahmanam. Atharva Vedam is completely lost except for one Brahmanam, namely the Gopada Brahmanam, and the 3 famous Upanishads Prashanam, Mundakam and Mandukyam. Nrusimha Dapini Upanishad is also from Atharva Veda. Thus, out of the 1180 branches with their Samhitai, Brahmanam, Aranyakam and Upanishad, what we are left with is some 7 or 8, even that with or without all the parts. Now, if we draw a diagram of 4 trees with branches in different colors for what was and what is, that will give us some idea of the state of paucity and poverty that we have reached from plenty and rightful pride. That will also enable the readers of this Deivathin Kural to remember the names of at least a surviving portion of our Vedas. If we let these few scattered and battered remains become extinct and not available for the subsequent generations, that will be a sin of such proportions and magnitude for which there will be neither atonement nor compensation. In the so-called Dravida Desham, that is especially the SW corner of South India, what is called Kerala today, among the Nambudris, I said the lamp of Veda is still burning bright. Till recently, Andhra is a place where Veda Adhyasam has been quite active and fruitful. One of the important reasons for this has been the yearly examinations and Vidwas Sadas held around the Vasanta Navaratri period in Vijayawada. Those who participate in the Sadas and those who pass the exams are honored with certificates of merit, presents, and cash incentives. In this exam, many students from all over the country participate. The Sadas is attended by many knowledgeable Vedavid householders and some foreigners too. Then, when they return home on the way, if they show the certificate, they will be respected and honored as welcome guests in any household. In Andhra, there is another very beautiful custom. Whenever they plan for conduct of a marriage or construction of a building, a percentage of the expenditure is set aside as dakshina for the Brahmins. An important point to understand here: to give to people who have is dhanam, to give to people who do not have is dharmam. To give to a Brahmin for his Vedavit is enabling and guarding him from the lure of lucre, which is more than Dhanam and Dharmam. Yes, a Brahmin should not be running after money. He should guard against greed. If he runs after money, he is not a Brahmin at all. But all other professions, other than this, Adhyanam, Adhyapakam, and teaching, are more lucrative. If someone adopts the Vedic life as a profession, he has to barely manage to eke out a living. This state of affairs should go. He should be able to do fairly well. This is the responsibility of the society to take care of a Brahmin's material comforts. This was so in the Telugu speaking areas of the country till very recently, which is the reason for prevalence of more Vedic well-being in such areas. We are now trying to revive the Veda Patshalas all over the country and especially in the south by arranging for sufficient funds for such purposes. In Tamil Nadu, till there were Nayakars and Maharashtrians and such Hindu Rajas in power here and in other Swadeshi Samsthanas, the Brahmin community were looked after fairly well with encouragements and tax exemptions. A person who had learnt a complete branch of the Vedas was known as a Srotriyan. Shruti is Vedam, giving rise to this name. Srotriyans were honored by donation of lands. Such villages where Brahmins were residing were exempted from paying taxes and called Irai Ili. Such villages used to be called Brahmadeyam or Chaturvedi Mangalam and some such names. They are all given to Brahmin communities because of the fact that these people would be earning such income as not to be able to pay taxes. This sort of facility was extended to them even during the rule of Muslim Nawabs and the East India Company. Still, things were going from bad to worse. Many Brahmin families had to convert their assets into cash and look for sustenance in cities and towns, opt for modern education, learning English, and gravitate towards government jobs, clerical cadre, Indian civil service, and such. The irreversible exodus from Vedic way of life had started. If there were one set of people so created and evolved to be able to stand apart while maintaining the highest standards of mental and moral discipline without getting too involved with the main concern for the worldly requirement of making ends meet, but devote their entire life for individual personal ennoblement while simultaneously work towards the benefit of others of the society, community, tribe, region, nation, and humanity as a whole, and in so doing commit the future generations to such tasks. This was the only unique Brahmin community not to be found anywhere else at any other time in the history of man. Their life was not the story of Sodom and Gomorrah or the fall of the Roman Empire, when, without being aware of their own unique specialist role, they left the Vedas and shifted to the white man's education and culture. They were Brahmins no more except in name. Om Shri Mahaperiva Sharanam.